Hello everyone, my name is Mary Rose Reeves, and today I'm going to be discussing some major plot points in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. So if you haven't read it yet, you might want to avoid this video until you have. Dostoevsky has written several books, some of his most popular being The Brothers Karamazov, The Idiot, and of course Crime and Punishment, all which could arguably be considered very deep books as they tend to delve into really psychological themes, and all have to do with murder. Crime and Punishment deals with Raskolnikov's inner conflict after he murders two women. Throughout the novel, we can see Raskolnikov embracing a very utilitarian and nihilistic mindset. Even within his own article, he describes very utilitarian ideas as he talks about his theories on crime. At this point in the novel, you can see that Raskolnikov's theories about extraordinary and ordinary people are starting to fail him. When he's talking to Porfiry, it's almost as if Raskolnikov is trying to convince himself that what he's saying is actually true, because he commits this awful murder and his only justification for it is that it's for the greater good of the people, because it's just an old woman that was just a menace. But Lizaveta, on the other hand, was just a sweet lady who did nothing wrong to the people of the town. Lizaveta's murder is a little harder to justify with nihilistic ideas, and it causes Raskolnikov to break down more quickly than if he had just murdered the old woman. In other words, I think Lizaveta's murder, it makes it harder for Raskolnikov to prove to himself that his theories are correct, which is what I think he was trying to do with the old woman's murder. Because Raskolnikov feels guilty for the double murder, the feeling starts to tear him up inside, which goes against his utilitarian and nihilistic mindset that he thought he had. This has to do with the conflict between his current mindset and the mindset that he grew up with, which is more Russian Orthodox and very spiritual. The guilt he feels coincides more with his old spiritual mindset that he thought he replaced with his nihilistic mindset, so he starts questioning his beliefs and theories. His theory suggests that some people are free from all moral ties, or in other words, that some extraordinary people are bigger than the law and can step over it when they see fit, in order for progress to be made for the good of the people. He references some extraordinary people like Isaac Newton and Napoleon. Raskolnikov believes that these extraordinary people are allowed to break the laws they see fit, so they shouldn't feel any remorse or guilt for their actions. And Raskolnikov used to believe this about himself until he murders the old woman and her sister and starts to feel guilty, which if he was an extraordinary person, he shouldn't feel any guilt at all. That's why his theories about ordinary versus extraordinary people ultimately fail him in the end, because for a theory to become a fact, it needs to pass any and all tests put to it. By killing the old woman, it's as if Raskolnikov was testing to see if he was an extraordinary person, and by feeling guilt, it's as if Raskolnikov failed the test of becoming an extraordinary man, and that his theory is incorrect. Alfred Albin wrote an essay in 1938 about Crime and Punishment, and he responds to Raskolnikov's split mindset, saying, even in prison after his conviction, Raskolnikov still holds inflexibly to the idea that the murder is justifiable. And yet his whole being, his entire moral nature is shaken precisely by the moral aspect of the murder. I really agree with this because Raskolnikov still wants his theories to be true and still wants to be an extraordinary man even after he goes to Siberia. But he still has this feeling of guilt and need for repentance that only his spiritual mindset corresponds with. He feels like he has failed the test and isn't as extraordinary as he thought. Francis Hackett, who wrote a review of Crime and Punishment, writes, "The fact that Crime and Punishment has a moral for those animalculæ who are endued only with intellect and will is one of its unexpected disclosures. Not until half the book is read is the Superman idea introduced." I disagree with this statement because I think Dostoevsky lets us know Raskolnikov's utilitarian mindset very early on in the book. Hackett's review makes it seem as if the reader doesn't know Raskolnikov's nihilistic ideas until he meets Porfiry. Dostoevsky introduces the reader to utilitarian ideas very early on in the book. The murder happens on page 73 in the translation that I have, and before that, when Raskolnikov is in the tavern, he overhears two men talking about almost exactly the same things that Raskolnikov writes about in his article. They're talking about killing the old woman because it'd be more beneficial to kill her than for her to continue to plague the world with her existence. This is arguably the same principles that Raskolnikov believes should justify his crime. Dostoevsky made sure that the readers knew, only 60 pages into his 500-page novel, exactly what Raskolnikov believes and continues to believe throughout the entire book. Dostoevsky weaved these psychological themes through the whole novel and made sure that we could pick up on them from the very beginning. His writings tend to deal with psychological themes, and Crime and Punishment is no different, as it deals with Raskolnikov's almost dual mindset and conflict between them. Overall, Crime and Punishment is very unique in style. especially how Dostoevsky is able to put an intellectual spin on a very simple murder story. Having Raskolnikov be a smart young man with no apparent motive murder someone for intellectual reasons is a genius way to physically depict utilitarianism. Several characters in the novel talk about utilitarian ideas but never actually put those ideas into practice. Dostoevsky shows us what nihilism and utilitarian ideas would do to someone if they were to actually put them into life. Well, that's all I have to say about Raskolnikov's failed theories, but there are so many other things to discuss within Crime and Punishment. I want to thank you all for watching, and goodbye.